Once upon a time, long ago, when the New World was still crisp and fresh, an eastern strand of elk roamed throughout the forest of what we now call Pennsylvania. They were abundant, massive, impressive, and this was their home. But inevitably, human expansion took its toll upon the herd, and slowly it began to decrease in size, until one day in 1867, in a place called Flag Swamp, the last of the eastern wild elk was harvested. As history tells it, a man named Jim Jacobs, a Seneca, tracked the animal for several days until he finally laid it to rest. And with that final shot, eastern wild elk were erased from the landscape. The details of the years following are nothing short of complicated. In 1895, the Pennsylvania Game Commission was established. Game laws were passed. And in 1912, conversation turned once again toward reestablishing the elk population. But of course, there was a small problem. What do you do when your eastern herd has been hunted into extinction? Well, meanwhile, Wyoming had been dealing with an excessive number of elk, and Yellowstone had decided to relocate a portion of their herd. Long story short, in 1913, over 100 years ago, Pennsylvania received their very first shipment of Rocky Mountain elk. 50 elk arrived by train. They cost about $30 per head. 2 years later, 95 more elk arrived. And in 1923, the ambitious Game Commission held its first legalized elk season. That first season produced 23 bull elk, and over the next few years, 25 more were taken, and then in 1927, hunters harvested a record 26 bulls. But after that, interest waned somewhat, and for a few decades, apparently, so did the herd's size. In 1952, the Pennsylvania Game News reported that today's elk population probably numbers less than 50 animals. For the next few decades, elk were largely under the radar, until around 1970. Farmers began complaining. To put it mildly, feelings were mixed. Some thought they had a right to shoot the elk, and others thought the elk were sacred. In any case, the discussion eventually led to an in-depth field study of elk, and in 1971, the first elk census was conducted. At that time, there were approximately 65 animals. A few years later, the herd suffered from brainworm, and the herd decreased to 38 animals. Then it rebounded, and in 1981, a census indicated a population of 135 Pennsylvania elk. 10 years later, in the early 90s, the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation stepped in to help the Game Commission in their elk program, and by 1993, the herd was estimated to have over 200 animals. As of today, thanks to good management, estimates indicate that Pennsylvania has around 1,400 elk, and during the 2021 season, 187 tags were issued. Now I get it. Not everybody is interested in the timeline that I just shared with you. Maybe you're asking, why would we spend millions of dollars and so many years to reestablish an elk population? Why even bother? Is it penance? Is it some kind of awkward atonement for exterminating the native herd? Or is it simply so that the game commission can have another source of revenue? Answers to all of these questions vary, but as for me, it's pretty simple. I resort to the logic of a man named Aldo Leopold. Aldo Leopold taught that land is a community to which we all belong. The soil, the plants, the water, the animals. These are all part of the land community, and each one is significant. We rely upon the land, and the land relies upon us. So we manage it with wisdom, and a part of that wisdom means resolving the conflicts that arise between the animals and humans that call this place home. To me, it's fairly straightforward. You see, long ago we killed all of Pennsylvania's elk, and so we took it upon ourselves to bring them back. And as for me, well, I can certainly appreciate that. I guess I just like the thought of living in a world where wild things are still appreciated and where they are recognized for what they are. Anyway, if you made it to the end of this video, congratulations. Your attention span is nothing short of heroic, and I will leave you with this. This elk herd in Pennsylvania reminds me that you and I are stewards of the earth. We're the gamekeepers. We're the caretakers. So let's do it well. Let's do it the right way. Until next time, get outside and find something wild and beautiful. Take time to appreciate the beauty of God's green earth. And of course, as always, thanks for the company.